What's up, product photographers? This is a public service announcement because I think I have an answer to the age-old question on how to price our product photography. We all know that our work is worth a lot of money and we want to capture some of that value. The way it's been done in the past is that you figure out what your cost of doing business is, and then you add a creative fee on top of that, and maybe you charge usage. But if you're like most new freelance product photographers these days, you're probably not even charging a creative fee, and you're certainly not even charging usage. You're just giving away a blanket usage license, and that hopefully after watching this video you're going to discover that's a very bad idea. You're not only shooting yourself in the foot, but you're hurting the industry as a whole, because now clients are expecting to receive commercial work for next to nothing. We're not taking headshots here. The only reason why this content exists in the first place is to sell products, drive revenue, and drive profit. So if we're not capturing at least some of that value, then we're really undercharging and shooting ourselves in the foot. So I'm going to show you what we're all missing out on. So let's go over to the computer and let's get started. To get an idea of how much our product photography is worth, we need to get some context on what sales revenue looks like for a typical product. Since most e-commerce sellers use Amazon as their main storefront, I'm going to use one of the most popular market research tools called Jungle Scout, which has been a major factor in why there is such a boom in amateur sellers lately. Essentially, what Jungle Scout does is it uses big data from known sources and its own algorithm to spot opportunities that e-commerce sellers can use to private label new products from China. And one of the biggest features of this program is the ability for it to extrapolate sales volume based on a product's bestsellers rank within a given category. So sellers can get an idea of how much revenue they can expect to make. But as a product photographer, we aren't going to use it for finding opportunities. So what can we do with this information? Well, essentially, when a client comes to you for a quote on a project, you can sort of get an idea of what kind of value you could bring to their product. Let's head on over to Amazon and let me show you what I'm talking about. So let's say a client has something like, just as an example, an avocado slicer. Avocado slicer. And you're about to give a quote on this project, and you'll have your packages and your typical pricing, and maybe that your client says it's too much. Well, is it? Let's find out. Looking at all the different avocado slicers being listed, one thing starts to stand out immediately. Not only does this seem to be of the same product, they also look very similar and not very many stand out. For all we know, they could be from the same brand manufactured in the same factory. So looking at a random example, I see from the Jungle Scout data that this particular listing has revenue estimated to be around $12,000 per month. Not bad. That's a lot of guacamole. We can then go back to our search and run data on all the listings at the same time to get an idea of what the low end looks like versus the high end. And we discovered that the average listing gets an estimated revenue of around $8,000 per month, with the low end being a few $100s and the high end being a recognized brand that gets over $200,000 per month in sales, just on Amazon. Of course, you as a product photographer, you can't control people's e-commerce business, so you can't really determine what their profit is going to be, but you can take listing photos that stand out, look different than all the other ones, attract clicks, and hopefully is appealing enough to make sales and revenue. And we can see on the high end of this particular product that you have a potential of $200,000 in sales, or you have a potential of a couple $100s a month in sales. So at this point, you would kind of ask your client a rhetorical question. be like, okay, there's a pretty big range of competition here, from several $100s a month in revenue to a couple $100,000 a month in revenue that this product can generate. How much work do you expect us to put in to be where you are? Where exactly are you trying to be in this range? Of course, everybody wants to be make as much as they possibly can and be at the top. But just for something like an avocado slicer, we're dealing with tens of thousands of dollars to hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue. And a lot of freelance product photographers and even professional product photographers are only charging like $40 a product photo. And giving away blanket usage, just not even caring. I then looked at a few more random products, and the results were even more impressive, with an average listing generating over $50,000 a month in revenue for a tea organizer, and $77,000 for a cat bed, with the high end of that being over $180,000 a month. I even found a past potential client's listing who had inquired about their own cat bed, but said we were too expensive and decided to hire someone for $700.
What?
So when we look at what the average freelancer and drop-and-pop studio charges, we could immediately see that they aren't charging anywhere close to what the market is making off of them. We've seen prices as low as $20 a picture, and it's like selling a $2,000 gold coin for $5. In this case, a $77,000 gold coin for $20. Tens and tens of thousands of dollars in revenue per month for a cat bed. I mean, this makes me want to go open up an Amazon store for a cat bed. And it's too expensive for even at $700. You're gonna... I don't think so. And that's just part of the story. There's a whole other side to this thing that you may not be aware of, because businesses are bought and sold all the time, which typically will include your assets. So let's go over to a site that I like to call empireflippers.com. Actually, I don't like to call them that. That's just what they're called. Empire Flippers is one of the many online business brokers where you can buy and sell profitable websites. And they take about 20% of the transaction for vetting the numbers and managing the sale. Many of the listings are of Amazon FBA stores too, and the cheapest we found was being sold for over $80,000, generating only $8,000 per month in revenue. More established stores are sold for much higher multiples, like this e-commerce store with 18 products generating $295,000 a month compared to the cat beds we just saw. Making $122,000 a month in profit, it's being sold for 58 times its monthly profit. And in the business world, when dealing with assets that make you money, it is common to not break even on an investment for 3 to 5 years. Since product photography can have a direct impact on the revenue, profits can be realized within weeks or months. And these assets are typically bundled with the sale of the business if you aren't licensing your images properly. But this is like a $7 million transaction where if you just gave away a blanket usage license for your $40 product photo, that gets transferred over to the seller whether you like it or not, because you weren't protecting yourself. I guess you may have thought that you were being competitive by supplying an unlimited commercial usage license with your $40 product photo. And you are likely not going to see a penny of this transaction. I don't know. How would you feel if you saw a site listed on here that was a past client of yours? They sold their Amazon store using your pictures and got this kind of money for it, and they didn't want to pay you more than $40 a photo or $700 for a project. Except many new product photographers are afraid to charge more than what they themselves consider a high number. which often isn't even close to the kind of revenues being generated from their work. So one of the ways we can attract higher paying clients is to be able to recognize how competitive a product might be, and using tools like Jungle Scout to determine the kind of revenues that are at stake, so we can capture some of that value by protecting our intellectual property with usage licenses. Instead of taking just the average listing photo, which is still incredibly valuable, it may mean focusing on designing content that is difficult for the average studio to reproduce on their own. If we're going to be going the extra mile and creating work to specifically stand out in the marketplace and drive these kind of revenues, that, you take what the monthly or yearly revenue is going to be, and you charge maybe 1 to 10% of the value that you see there. And I think there's a lot of room where we can go. And I think this is where we as product photographers need to basically do better work. We have to outshoot the cheap freelancers and outshoot them by a lot by creating work that they just frankly are not able to do. So what we're going to be doing, and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it, is we're going to be rebuilding our portfolio from scratch and taking you along with us. And if you're a freelance product photographer who's okay with $40 for a product photo and giving away your usage license, leave a comment below, and I'd love to hear from you and sort of have an understanding of why.